are.
I'll do that and then put you back.
Okay.
Make host. Okay, perfect.
Great.
So yeah, the sponsor for tonight is Brockport Research Institute. And a little bit about them, I want to just read. So Sarah from Brockport Research Institute said that they are grant writings for school, universities, municipalities, and nonprofits. So we really appreciated their help in supporting this and letting so many of you log on, or at least have the recordings for afterwards, which is really great. So tonight, Nancy is our impact specialist staff that we have here, and she's been doing some awesome stuff for families and teaching how to be more sustainable in your life. And so she's also going to be, this is another passion thing that she and we have talked about a lot, of how to create an ongoing list of businesses, restaurants in Rochester that are eco-friendly and how they are eco-friendly, so that people can kind of click right on a list and they know where they can go for certain aspects of sustainability. So I'll send it back over to Nancy and she can get started.
Great. Well, thank you for sharing part of this Earth Day, with us. It was a gorgeous day and the sun is still shining. So I really appreciate, you coming out. I've been with Impact Earth about 3 years now, and I really love our mission of diverting materials from the landfill and reducing single-use consumption. I mean, that's kind of why I'm here. It aligns with my own personal value of reducing waste, which was kind of instilled in me since I was young, and so it's a really great opportunity. I do have to say, when Abby asked me to do this workshop, I was terra-sighted, and that is a word that a friend of mine coined. The terrified part was defining green businesses. Was like, oh my gosh, what's that going to be like? And am I going to be able to kind of gather information about what's happening in Rochester and organize it and make sense of it? And so that was the terrified part. The excited part was you always learn something new, and it is really cool to see the different things that Rochester has to offer. And I think the more you start to learn about environmental issues, and the more that you are really, trying to strive toward a zero waste lifestyle, you want the businesses to support the choices you're trying to make. In fact, that's one of the really important components, of zero waste is to support local businesses, especially if they're making it easier for you to make those choices. So that's part of what I was trying to really kind of pull together when we decided that we were going to do this workshop. Because I would say definitely, as we're kind of going through, I'm going to share my screen, and I do have kind of a formal presentation, and part of it is explaining a resource you're going to get after this presentation that we were going to send to you. So it's also going to be me kind of sharing, what's on there. And I have to say, it is a work in progress. I really kind of uncovered that while there's a lot going on, there's a lot more that we can discover. So you're going to be walking along this learning journey of me putting together this workshop is partly. So I'm going to I'm going to share my screen. And when one of the things I was hoping to pull together for tonight that you would learn is a little bit around some criteria to define a green business, because I felt that was really important if we were even going to kind of learn, like, all right, well, what do we have in Rochester and where can you find it? The second piece is, how to use your consumer power. And I really mean, like, when you when you really want businesses to do the things that you want to be able to kind of support your goals, you kind of do that by visiting the business. And the third is I'm going to review what businesses we actually reviewed for our own ROC Green listing and how you can help in helping us to kind of continue to grow this. So these were the 4 objectives that that I kind of came up with for how we would spend the next time together. But I do want to ask, especially since we're a small group, and if you're comfortable, if you had a particular reason that drew you here tonight, was it just, yeah, I wanted to see what's happening in Rochester, and that's fine. But if you also have like a particular environmental issue that's important to you, if you're comfortable sharing it, you could unmute and just kind of share as a way of introduction, and it would help us to kind of know, we could tailor a little bit of what we're covering tonight. Anyone?
Hi, I'm Barb Matthews. I'm on the board of directors for So Green Rochester, and I wasn't sure if you're on your list or not.
Yes,
but we take in donated fabrics and other kinds of sewing supplies and knitting supplies, and we have a storefront in Rochester in the Susan B. Anthony district, and we sell the supplies to other people. And we also do all kinds of community outreach where we teach people how to sew. We give people sewing machines, or we sell them sewing machines for really low prices. And we basically reuse tons and tons of fabric, which is great. That's why I got in.
And I just want to say, I did get the communication from Emily, so we did add you to the listing, and I'm so glad that you're here tonight. Do you use fabric scraps as well, or not so much?
Yeah, we people come and they get a special scrappy bag, and they can fill that scrappy bag up, and apparently there are people who like to sew those small pieces together and make them into other things.
Oh, that's awesome. That is so awesome. Because that's definitely a need, because a lot of times even like clothing and stuff that wouldn't be reusable or, reusable, but the fabric might still be good. So I've been always, so I'm happy to find you.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy to learn about that as well.
Yeah.
My interest here, I'm just concerned citizen, and I think, as you said, Nancy, I'm very interested in reducing waste and living as sustainably as I can. I came to just learn how things that I can continue to improve on.
That's great. That's great. Thanks so much, Lori. So yes, so and definitely that's, we'll that's part of what we will cover. When in my terrified state of defining a green business, I definitely had some criterion in mind based upon wanting to, live more sustainably, reduce waste and all of that. But I always kind of start with the Google search. I'm always curious, like what is a green, so what is a green business? So I just put in green business, and I wanted to share just a resource that is going to be on your resource list because it was interesting to me, and it really gets into more of something that you might use, particularly if you're passionate about a certain environmental issue. So the Federal Trade Commission actually has a summary of green guidelines, and it was really developed for people who marketed businesses. So it gave them guidelines as to what they could say or not say about whether a business had green aspects to them. So some of the things, and so there's a link to that in the summary that, or in the resources that you're going to get. And basically it gives examples of like, if a business said that they reduced carbon, they would have to have scientific evidence of that. And they defined things, they defined different materials, like what's compostable, what's degradable, what's free of substances or non-toxic. So it just kind of defines all these different terms that you might see not only in a business, but also maybe in a product. And so I have it as a resource, especially if you're kind of like, I'm not really sure about the terminology. And it was what kind of came up, but I also found in my search for how am I going to define green businesses for this presentation, I knew that this wasn't the stopping point. It was just a resource that could be used. The second thing I found that was kind of interesting is that the Environmental Protection Agency has what they call green power partnership ratings. And basically what they do is they rate businesses and schools on their green power usage and renewable energy sources. And I found this because when I was looking up the grocery stores, I found that Aldi's was actually had gotten a EPA partnership rating. They were like in the top 30 or top 100 businesses in the country. And I was surprised by that. So I list these two just as maybe resources if you ever needed to look something up, like if you were getting more into an environmental issue and you wanted to look up a term or you wanted to see if a business was on there, that's why they're there. So that was like my starting point. And then I had the criteria that already was important to me trying to live a zero waste lifestyle. So I wanted some help kind of defining what was available in Rochester. And I actually asked some people to share with me sustainable businesses. And I used some of this criteria and people had a hard time with that. Even folks that I knew that were really kind of, I would say very environmental, they weren't really thinking in terms of do their business, you know, are they supporting businesses that actually help them with their choices? But some of the things that I look for, particularly like in a grocery store, you know, is do they offer bulk food? Because I want to reduce my packaging. So I want to be able to go and, you know, do bulk food and either bring my own container or reuse a container. I'm interested in businesses that do recycle goods, just like So Rochester, you know, does. So, so what are those businesses? Particularly with what we do and restaurants, and if I'm going to support them, I want to see that they're diverting their food waste, sell local goods, or possibly they sell eco products. And eco products, you know, would be any of the things that you might purchase and buy because you want to substitute plastic. So I'm kind of with some of these criteria, I'm kind of assuming certain environmental knowledge, you know, that you kind of know already, like, well, why? You know, why are we recycling? And, you know, and why do we want to see that a business uses alternative energy? So there's a certain assumption there. And I think that the more you learn about environmental issues, the more then you're zeroing in on like some of the things that are important to you personally as a consumer, but also these are some of the things we're looking at. So, so these were some of the categories. And this was followed by, by Yelp. Are most people familiar with Yelp as a, you know, you can go on Yelp and look for a business and you can have a business rated and all of that. Well, I learned right before I was going to do this presentation that Yelp had developed sustainability attributes. And when I looked that up, I first came across their older ones. They actually came out with them in 2017 during Earth Month. And then they renewed them and came out with new ones in 2022. So I was very, very excited when I saw that because I thought that was going to help me with my presentation. I was going to be able to go to Yelp and I would be able to search sustainability and search these attributes, and I'd be able to come up with a list of businesses that I could share with you. But what I'm going to share with you are, first of all, the attributes that Yelp is capable of reporting on when it comes to a business. So their searchable attributes in 2022 is that there's an electric vehicle charging station available at the business, that they offer plastic-free packaging, that they provide reusable tableware that's particularly more like for restaurants, that you can bring your own container that's allowed at their restaurant or business, that they offer compostable containers, and that they have bike parking or that they're vegan. And these were the attributes. So again, super excited. I'm going to get to go. Yelp's going to help me with my presentation. So I went on Yelp and I searched sustainable businesses in Rochester. And there were about 5 that came up. They weren't the ones that you would think. And so I thought, this can't be right. So I searched each attribute. And it was interesting because the electric vehicle charging stations came up with no local businesses except for the electric vehicle charging solutions company, which actually sells parts for electric vehicles. So it wasn't even and the only thing that came up was this restaurant in Mount Morris, which also offers compostable containers and a BYO container. So if you happen to be in Mount Morris, you can go to this Barrickian, restaurant and, and feel like it's pretty good. But none of the ones came up that we even know exist. None of the places that I'm going to share with you came up on this Yelp review. And same thing with plastic-free packaging. It was just, a brewery, a florist, and a bakery. And same thing with the other categories. They weren't really populated with what we really wanted to see for it to be a useful tool. They did have 20 vegan listings, though, that did kind of come up. So what this said to me was 2 things. One, that the businesses didn't really know about it, because it's kind of up to them to have a profile and update their profile. And the second thing, and this is a little bit with Yelp needs a little help, they need us to search for these attributes. It needs to be something that's coming up so that Yelp is going, well, what's going on here? And so, so I had a little bit of part of what I wanted to share tonight was ways that you can help. And definitely I put it on my radar screen of something that I want to do when I'm in a business. So part of it is again, I've already started searching, for these attributes on Yelp. And then the other part is if a business is actually doing some of those things, then I want to say, way to go. And I want to look up and see, are they listed? And then I want to tell them, well, did you know that, you offer these, you offer a compostable container or a BYO container, you need to have that listed on Yelp, because there's a lot of people that care and we want to easily find you. And while Impact Earth, and you'll see what we put together as far as how we're going to be rating these businesses and the information we're collecting and the information we want to share with you. But there's a lot of people out there that'll be trying to search on Yelp. So we kind of want to make sure that that becomes a really good tool that can work for us. Because even if we're updating all the time, you're still going to want to go in and, and search for some of these, criteria. So, so one of the things, again, the way you can help is, like let the business know. And the other part is you can also let us know if, again, we're going to review the businesses that we have, but let us know of new businesses that you really like, because we're going to be continuing to update our listing. So that's a little bit of what brought me to the listing that we were going to share with you tonight. So this is kind of the spreadsheet of, and it's only part of it, and I'm going to kind of go through this, of what you'll be sent, and you can use it as a tool for yourself. And also tell your friends to, like, you know, again, as we learn about the things that we want the businesses to do, we love for you to tell us so we can keep updating, because you'll notice that not everything is filled out here. So this is a list of restaurants. And of the restaurants, now you'll see at the you'll see in the here that I did indicate those Yelp searchable attributes. So I put those in kind of its own section. So that's a reminder to you of what they are. And anything that we knew about the restaurant, we have a definite yes on. If there was something that came up in that Yelp review, then I have Yelp over there. So there were some things that did come up when you actually knew the business, but sometimes it tells me that if they do other things, they didn't indicate that, like even on Yelp. But one of the things about the restaurants that you see listed here, every single one of those, you'll be able to click on it and go right to their website and get more information about them. So the nice thing about the majority of the ones that you see first, you see all the ones that divert their food waste. And they do that, and most of them do that with us. Where we know that they have a compostable container, we have that indicated. Now, does everybody know why that's important with a compostable container? Kind of like so. So actually, I did, as opposed to having, so actually,
styrofoam.
like yeah, like having styrofoam or plastic, or even the plastic ones. So like, you know, like your styrofoam and plastic, you know, when you get it and you bring it home, you're either going to throw it out or you're going to try to reuse it as many times as you can. But then eventually it's going to end up in the landfill. So when you have a compostable container, it actually can go into a commercial compost and break down. But people really don't understand that either. And I have to tell you, Abby, I did a commercial for this yesterday. So I volunteer at Rochester General Hospital, and they did a thank you to the volunteers, and they had us come in and pick up a lunch. And the lunches were from Root Catering, and they have our compostable containers. And I was so excited because when I brought it home, not only like when I'm done eating my lunch, this can go in my bucket and it's going to break down. So I was super excited. So I was telling everybody who was there getting their lunch, I gave them an Impact Earth moment and I told them about this. But my partner who volunteers with me, she said, oh, then you can put it in your trash. So she really didn't get it about the compostable until I explained it to her. And, you know, so again, we're all kind of like educating ourselves all the time. And the more educated you are around why certain things are important, then, you know, again, you want to know where to go. So, so we do have that indicated in the restaurants here. So, the piece around the ones that just say Yelp on here, they came up in my Yelp. They came up in the Yelp survey for vegan restaurants. So I have them on there. I don't know much. I don't know a lot of other information about them, but I have them on here because as we frequent some of these restaurants, we're going to be looking for some of the other criteria and we're going to ask them for it. And I have a belief that when you ask a business for something, and particularly if they care about their customers, it's going to kind of educate them indirectly. Like, well, why? Well, why do you want that? And then you can share a little bit about your experience and why you want it. And I'm hoping that we empower more people to keep working with our businesses, because then they're going to be more receptive to us. And so that was part of it. The other part was, you know, even the businesses that we knew that were already environmentally friendly, there were still some other things that they can do. So, you know, we learned about the Yelp piece, and, you know, so we're going to be, you know, letting them know, hey, you know, make sure that all these great things you're doing is known to the public so that that they can, you know, frequent your restaurant and stuff. So So that's on there. In the notes section, if the business does something else that I thought was interesting, like offer a fundraising option or a give back, I kind of have links to that too. So that's on there. At the bottom of this slide, you're going to see 3 restaurants that that are part of I-Square in Irondequoit. And it says the building uses green technology. So there's a link to I-Square's green technology. And I have a slide for that. Are people familiar with I-Square? Are you familiar with I-Square? So I-Square is really pretty amazing. In fact, I highly encourage to kind of go click on this link, but they power this whole building entirely with, they use a combination of solar, wind, geothermal, and get this, people power. They have a gym there and people cycle, and the cycle is connected to, like, it generates power. And it's it's like a whole learning center for environmental stuff. And they have a rain garden. They collect stormwater. They have the electric vehicle charging station. But guess what? They're not listed on Yelp as having that. So, so again, this was kind of this whole little like mystery of, putting things together. But I-Square is very, very cool as far as a place. And they do have different restaurants, but I don't know the specifics of those restaurants. But see, I would frequent them just because they're in I-Square, and that the building is using all this great technology. But when I go over there, I'm going to be looking for some of those other criteria, and I'm going to be asking them about it. Or we may be calling some of the businesses to ask them to kind of update this listing. So, so I wanted to give a little bit of a plug for I-Square in Irondequoit. So back to, I didn't do, one of the things we were going to do if we had a really large group, we were going to have people put in the chat if you have other businesses to add. But because we're a small group, if as we go through these categories, if you're looking at like some of the listings, if there's something that you'd like to add, you can let us know. And, like my email address will be on there. So when you get this after the presentation, and you see kind of like what we have, if there's anything that you learn about or that you'd like us to know, you can certainly then add to the list. So with the bakery, coffee shops, and ice cream category, again, we have the ones that divert food waste with us. Most of them, now I didn't get to really fill in the bring your own container option, but my guess is most of the coffee shops do. And there's coffee shops that aren't on here as well, that we just haven't like listed there, that probably have some attributes. They would have something like the bring your own container. The one thing that's really interesting with businesses, and I actually learned this when I called Happy Earth Tea Company. They've been composting with us for a while, and I think they're a good example of how many businesses are on a journey and they're trying to get more and more sustainable. But like they may not be 100% yet, but they're on that journey, and then they want to take the next step. So I actually did call Happy Earth because I was starting to do some calls to see if I could fill more of this in for you. But again, I only had so much time to do some of this. But what I really liked about Happy Earth was, she said to me that, yeah, during COVID, we had to get some quick, takeout containers. We have some compostable containers. We're hoping that when we run out of this next batch, we're going to replace it with totally compostable containers. So, so different businesses are on like this journey of becoming more and more sustainable. And I think the more that we're using some criteria to kind of not only hold them accountable, but give them a hand for where they are and where they hope to go. That's part of, how we would kind of use this resource, particularly in the future. So again, with some of the notes, we have, what I liked about Happy Earth is that some of the businesses do what they call a 1% give back to the planet of their profits. And so some of the businesses actually have that. And some of the businesses have sustainability statements right on their website. And I think that that's really helpful. But a lot of them who are doing great stuff aren't always sharing that on their website. And I think that that's an important thing to actually encourage businesses as well. I think they need to really say what they're doing, because the more they say what they're doing, the more we can share what they're doing. And in many ways, when you share something that you really love about a business that has a sustainable practice, you're actually educating others, people, friends, families, like, why do you go there? And what do you like about that? And so, it's helping to encourage people to kind of start to broaden their awareness of different environmental issues and to show it by where they put their dollars. So, so that's why we think it's important. And these were, again, some of the shops that we had when it came to sustainable businesses. I was really excited that Eat Me Ice Cream had a compostable container for ice cream, because I love ice cream. And, and it is one of those things that the container just doesn't come in something that you can reuse, I mean, I guess if you go to Pittsford Dairy, I mean, it's still plastic that it comes in, but it's a pretty nice one and you probably would use it, a number of times. But when you're looking at like what you can recycle and stuff, I know I'm always looking for these different options. So, so this is the bakeries, coffee shop, and ice cream category. And if there, again, if even if tonight, if there's anything you want to add to it, we can also do that tonight.
Nancy,
if something comes to mind.
Nancy, do you have a category for organic? Like if something
that they sell organic products?
Yeah.
Well, I did not do that in here. We had, I was going with, I mean, I know that, yeah, because like with local farms, you would hope part of the whole thing with do local is in the environmental, is, trying to kind of reduce the transportation costs of where our food comes from. So, that could be a category that we could add in. A lot of times that is what people will put in their, will put into their ingredients. I'm usually I'm definitely looking for, though, that they are, using local products, that they're working with our farms. And many of them do also say that the farms that they are working with are organic. I also, like in the environmental world, I'm also looking for like, are those farms using regenerative agriculture? I mean, it can really start to kind of like broaden out the things that are important. But I did not have it as a single category here. Yeah, but good question.
Another category I was going to suggest was, are they located on a bus line that you could get there without a car?
Yeah, that's great. They have, now it's interesting that that they have about the bike parking. And, you'll notice that, well, actually, you'll notice with some other ones that's something that is also kind of coming up with Yelp, like that they have bike parking. But yeah, bus line is actually a really good one to add. And I'm actually making a note on both of those, the organic and the bus line. The breweries and bars. The reason why they have a lot on here is that when I typed in sustainable businesses in Rochester on Yelp, the first thing that came up were some breweries. And they're the ones that you kind of see kind of filtered in, like on the bottom there. The Sager, Sager Beer Works, Carol's Bar, these Recreo. Now, it's not that we're like recommending them per se. I wanted them on here because they're coming up right now with certain categories on a Yelp, search. But I think that with other things, when it comes to some of these, we would be looking at new businesses that we might reach out to. You do see at the top the 3 that divert their food waste with us. So so we would be looking at again, having these businesses kind of expand their categories of what they're doing sustainability wise.
I will add with like breweries, I think the reason why they are a little bit ahead, I would consider them maybe a little bit ahead with the eco-friendly options, is because they're like the remnants from brewing, they can actually compost, like all the pellets and all the plant matter that's after. They are able to compost with different farms. So some of them might compost with us. It's typically for their food scraps for the restaurant aspect of it. But I know that a few of these breweries have worked with other farmers, and they just give them their pellet scraps from brewing. So I don't know if that might be why breweries are a little bit ahead with that. And so they think about the compostable, and they think about getting local farms to work with. But that's just my 2 cents on the breweries, maybe.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And then also what I was learning is, like bringing your, like they'll sell a glass, it's going to be refillable. And then the consumer keeps the glass, so then they're not going through all, either disposable or, I don't know. Do you take it home, Abby?
Well, those actually are like, they do memberships for a year. And so you get a glass, and then they actually keep that glass and clean it all year. And they have like a wall of all their members. And then at the end of the year, you take that glass home. So yeah, you get to just use your own glass cup there. And usually there's like benefits to being a member in that way.
Yeah, great. Yeah. So again, very educational. The next category is the one that I was really most excited about to learn, and then also kind of expand. And there's definitely, I'm sure, many more shops and things that can go on here. Some of what we were looking at was definitely that whole recyclable aspect. Again, I was very excited to learn about So Green, but then also Rochester Green Ovation. They are taking a lot of products. They're taking a lot of people's goods and then reselling. And there's other ones too that I didn't actually get on here. I'm thinking because like the good ABVI Goodwill, there's a lot of those stores that do the recycle of goods. And it's an interesting thing there, because I think people have to shift their perspective on how they view those kinds of stores. They're not a less than, they're a really important contribution to what we need to see. So you have definitely.
Nancy, do you have a category for that? I can't see one. For selling recycled goods.
Yes, it's the very last one. You know what? Probably you can actually move you can move like us. I don't know where we are on your computer screen.
Okay.
But
I just did that.
Yeah, and then you can see where it says recycled goods.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have that. And also I had a link to your sustainability policy on there as well. Because I thought that was really great that you had it listed right there on the website, and with the classes. And again, as I was learning more neat stuff about the businesses, I tried to kind of like have links to them. So like Shop What's Good sells similar products to Impact Earth, in that they're replacing, plastic with other kind of reusable products. They have a Sunback program. So they're doing a little of the TerraCycle. I don't know if you are familiar with TerraCycle. It's where a business will take back their containers and sometimes give you a discount for returning the containers. So they have a way, they're actually doing that. So they have kind of like a program there. So I have a link to that. And they also have an eco glossary on their website too, to kind of explain some different terms, because again, recognizing that, it's a real journey. And the more you're learning, you're like, well, what's that term? What does that mean? And why is that important? So there's a lot of that when it comes to being involved, but then also with what businesses that you do support. So I have to say right now, like Parkley and Sungrove Blossoms aren't like on there because we thought, oh, they were the best, they're the greatest. It was because they came up on a Yelp review with plastic-free packaging. So I would definitely do a thumbs up on the plastic-free packaging. I would want to learn more about what else they do. So, or if they do any of the other categories.
So Nancy, I have a question about that. The plastic-free packaging, how is that defined? Is that like when they're getting things shipped to them, that it's plastic-free? What is the definition of that?
Yeah, Abby, that's a good question. I have to look back. I do have in everybody's resources, I have a link to the blog or there's an article that Yelp did when they introduced it, and they define it.
Okay.
And
that's a hard one to me, is what is plastic free about it? Because I just can't imagine that they'd get things shipped to them that's plastic free. So maybe it's somewhere else. I'm surprised by that.
Yeah. Well, where I would, and actually I had filled in about Once Upon a Child.
Okay.
I love Once Upon a Child.
I know, me too. Yeah.
Yeah. And there, you're not going to get a plastic bag. You're going to bring your own bag. You're not going to have a package. So, but yes, I do believe it is in that Yelp article. And that is in one of the links in this resource too.
Cool.
So, yeah, so that is with our shops. The more we learn about different shops that are doing it, and then even like I said, some of the ones that I didn't include here, like the ABVI, that again, it's another resource that people have. I'm trying to think what their stores are called. There's some other stores that definitely would go into this category in the shops. Oh, the other one too. It was really cool again with So Green to have the option. I also have used Crafts Bits and Pieces in Fairport to recycle. I mean, for people who do crafts, you can accumulate a lot of junk. So, so it's really nice to have options and to kind of and to have a really great means to to be able to kind of move some of the materials on.
We don't call it junk, we call it treasures.
Treasure, I know. I have a whole treasure room, and yes, it's being strategic about what you keep and what you move on. Well, next in the whole area of food and grocery stores. So before I talk about the mainstream stores, the ones that are the most sustainable as far as clicking off like most of the categories, most people in the environmental world know about Abundance Food Co-op and Lori's. Interesting though, if you look at like Lori's did not come up, Lori's didn't have any sustainability categories. Abundance had a couple. So it was interesting, to me. And again, my plan is to circle back around to some of these businesses, well, and actually Abundance did pretty good as far as with the Yelp categories. But other businesses that I know do great stuff, like I want them to have those searchables. So Pittsford Dairy, is a really good example of that circular economy of returning the container, because You know, you don't accumulate anything when you buy milk from them. They have products there that do accumulate and stuff. But as far as like if you buy milk from them, you do have the option of being totally zero waste, which I do kind of like that option. When it comes to the mainstream grocery stores, you're going to find that there's going to be sections that you really like, and then there's opportunity for improvement. And what I did in the mainstream grocery stores is that the links to the stores have their sustainability statements on it. So when you click on Wegmans, Aldi's, Tops, or Trader Joe's, you're going to see what they say is their sustainability practice. And many of them are moving toward, I mean, they're definitely moving towards donations, getting, you know, like making sure that food that is edible is getting into the places that people that need it. They're looking towards trying diverting food waste or working with a local farm. Wegmans has an organic farm in Canandaigua. They have Wegmans just came out with their whole what they want to do for zero waste. And there's a little video, and they were even sending it out to their customers. And I thought that was good because I think we have a lot of vocal groups in Rochester that are needing to like ask their businesses to be providing what we want, you know, local goods and working with local farms. So they're trying to define the ways that they're doing that. I do know it, again, it is a journey, and different parts of the store are farther along. With their zero waste initiative, their Syracuse and Virginia stores are a little farther along than Rochester. That's just kind of what they said, but that just tells me that there's room for improvement. And we again, we have a lot of positive things that are happening. We have to build on that. So with the mainstream, you're going to see things that you like and things that that again are room for improvement. And I can see us in the future, if we're going to be a trusted source for letting you know about some of these businesses, then we'll be gathering more specific information. But again, this whole grid and the links and the different ways that we can go was my effort to kind of organize it all into a document that can be built upon, that can be a resource to come back to, and as well as being educating around why, you know, how you use your purchasing power to educate others and also to educate the businesses. So so that's included. The last that says green resources, these were the things I already talked about, that Federal Trade Commission green guide. There's a link right to it. There's a link right to the EPA ratings. There's a link to the Yelp sustainability criteria where they announce it. There's also something called local harvest. And you can click on that and you can find the local farms that have different harvests, different farms and products. Rochester Green Business, it looked like a pretty technical thing, but I threw it in there anyway. It wasn't that helpful to me for this presentation, but I put it in there. But I did learn about a private recycling company that you can use for fundraisers. And I thought that was kind of cool. So I threw them in at the bottom there as well. And then the last thing is, again, us seeking that as you're learning about businesses, if you would communicate with us, we can continue to update this. And we would really appreciate that. I had developed a survey where people could tell us about their businesses and then indicate if there was any sustainability around that. So the link to that is actually right here. And that's something that could be shared with friends. I mean, that could really be done anytime. Anytime someone does it, we'll be able to see that they did it. Or you could just send an email to let us know about a business that you found that you really liked and think that we should know about it. So that's what was accumulated there. There's my thank you. I'm going to stop my screen share.
Oh, perfect. Thank you so much, Nancy. I'm excited
Yeah.
about this. Even just the beginning of it and developing it. I think it's a really good resource to have for people in Rochester. So that's great.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I'd love to see, I mean, this, in honesty, this was like this was a trial run of this presentation
Mhm.
because we haven't really done it before. So, but I'd love to get it in front of like a larger audience where more people are going out and connecting with their businesses, and asking those questions and, and filling in the grid, because there's a lot of things that we do well in our area. And I think we need to, there's so little to celebrate these days that, let's keep building on those small wins and, help the small businesses along that are doing what we want to see. And then the larger ones, help them keep making some steps. And I think we just have to be vocal on that of what we want. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So Barbara and Lori, do you have any thoughts or comments or questions, anything that you want to share with us?
Yeah, this is wonderful. Thank you so much. One thought I had, because one of my pet projects is reducing car dependence and car usage. So I was just thinking that an alternate presentation of the businesses would be like by geographic areas, like walkable neighborhoods, everything that's walkable in different neighborhoods, or bikeable, or busable, as we were talking about, just so that they're organized by location and you don't have people, driving really far to get to a business that's not near them. Anyway, that's just another thought.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the ideal.
Yeah, I like that.
And I love the bike route, Mhm. Yeah. That's great. Well, I did tell Emily, I said I could see doing this with our staff, even to kind of like, let's fill that grid in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nancy, are you sharing that right now, the link for that for them, or am I sending it by email for the actual Excel that you have?
For the actual resource?
Yeah.
I will send it to you and
Okay.
then you can send it, because I'll PDF it, and then I think all the links should be live in there.
Yeah.
So I just want to make sure, because I was still kind of monkeying around with it today. But yeah, so we can do that next. We'll send that out to you like early next week.
Okay.
As a follow-up.
Perfect.
Make sure impact is on the list as well, right?
Yes,
That's
it was
true.
funny because I realized after I did the slide thing, it's like, oh, we're not on there. But see, even with that, then it was like, I would want to show like, where are all our products and, and stuff. So there would be ways to kind of do that, especially if we were doing geographically in the future.
Yeah, I love the idea of developing a map once we have that put
Yeah.
together. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. And I do have to say, like, you'll find like minds when you ask certain things. So like now I'm being a little bit more like, if I met a friend at Fairport Coffee, and I knew that about this. And then when I was walking up and I said, I'm doing this listing. And so I asked her, can I bring my own mug in and get it refilled? And, they're like, yep. But they still had the coffee, the coffee cups that still have the wax the wax liner. So that wouldn't be something that would be recyclable. But if they made a switch to a different product, it would. So that might be the next step for them, so
Yeah.
it was just kind of, yeah, but the girl was like, oh yeah, I love what you guys do. So like a lot of times people like having these conversations.
And some businesses don't know that they can get compostable. So just for reference for you both, we do also sell compostable packaging for businesses and for individuals who want to have compostable for like their parties or events. So that's what we're trying to offer that to restaurants too, and businesses, just so they know we can also supply you with your compostable ware if that's kind of what you're missing. So like Ugly Duck uses it, and I think Simply Crepes as well. They order their the poutine one does too. So
Yeah.
some businesses are starting to switch to compostable ware, but it definitely takes time because it's more expensive. So they have to
So
be willing.
can you define what compostable means? I
Yeah.
get the impression that it has to be processed a particular way. That you can't just throw it into the garbage.
Yeah, so the reason why we say it can't be, it technically can be put in the garbage, but it does the same thing that food would as well. It breaks down. It will biodegrade because it's made of food, but it's going to still release methane gas in the landfill because it's being composted around plastics. And so that's why if you see a restaurant that has compostable ware, but they don't have a compost bin, I always try and bring my compostable ware home and put it in my compost bin. So that being said, so obviously that's the best way is to compost it because then it's going to actually break down and it will do so naturally and you won't have any emissions being released. But it's also difficult depending on what compostable ware it is. So usually sometimes you just get all paper. And it's just like a cardboard container without any type of lining, or it might be a wax lining instead of like a thin plastic lining. And so that will compost in your backyard compost bin very easily. But then there's BPI compostable, which I'm sure you've seen around a lot. And that's clear plastic looking, but it's usually made of corn, like a byproduct of corn. So that more plastic style compostable takes a lot more time to compost. Yeah, the lid of the Roots Catering. Yep. So that one actually takes a lot more time to compost and sometimes needs a more industrial compost bin. Or compost method. So if you compost it through Impact Earth, that we do accept that because we have a bigger production. So it'll actually break down. It might take a few cycles of being buried, but it will break down over time. There's actually not in the United States, I think it was like close to 90% of the industrial compost facilities don't accept BPI products because it does take more time and it's a little bit more finicky to work with. So that's why it's a debate of, is BPI product actually beneficial to the environment? Because a lot of people don't actually accept it. So it just ends up in the landfill. So yeah, if you're using BPI products, definitely make sure that you can actually compost it. And that's a big thing that I notice it in certain restaurants. I'm like, that's amazing, but now I want to convince you to compost with Impact Earth because you need somewhere to put that. So it's just an interesting fact about compostable ware.
So what I live in Lima, New York, which is half an hour from Rochester. Do you guys serve out to that far? Or?
What is the county of Lima?
Livingston.
So I think we are trying to get further out, and we're doing that either by having more the ability to do curbside, or we're trying to get the towns to work with us so that they offer it for their residents, and it might be like a drop site.
Oh, that'd be nice.
Yeah, so we have a few towns we work with in that way. It makes it a little easier because obviously it's harder when we only maybe have a few customers out in Lima. You know, obviously the driving, we want to reduce that. So hopefully that's our kind of our goal, is branch out to towns who want to start up a compostable or doing compost for their residents. So yes, hopefully soon. Livingston County is definitely on our list.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments before we head off tonight? No, awesome.
Oh, this was really good.
Thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate it. We had a lot more people sign up, but unfortunately, I'm thinking it's that beautiful weather.
Yeah, I am too. That happened once before. It was a gorgeous night, and
it's hard when it's so beautiful out. It's like, oh man, but I could be outside right now. So thankfully we do record it. So if, people want to go
Yeah.
back to it, they can, but we really appreciate that you both were live.
Yeah.
You made it out.
Yeah,
So yeah, we'll
thank
get
you.
those, I'm going to stop.